What is going on, everybody? Hope you're all having a great Tuesday. Sheets is going to be out for a couple days, taking his son back to college, and me and Rohde get to do a recorded show from Rohde's home for the first recorded from your home show we've done together. And we got a monster one slate to get into, so it should be a fun one. There's the 111, so lots of multi-entering for people. I know you probably don't prefer these because you like to do a few in the big ones. But what are your thoughts on what you're going to do tonight? You're going to play a few 111s?
Yeah, I'll have a few 111s. I know there's a big qualifier, the 970 qualifier. I got 2 tickets in that. That's really what I want. But yeah, I'll real focus on 2 solid lineups and maybe get to 5 or 10 lineups of the 111.
Nice. Sounds good. Yeah, I feel we've had some things right and some things wrong lately. I just can't quite seem to get all the pieces in the right places. I had the White Sox right, but didn't get the Eloy yesterday, and we just are a little bit all over this. I mean, that's just baseball. You're gonna have days like that. All right, you ready to talk about this? We'll go game by game, and we'll try and keep it speedy because there's so many games to get through.
Yep.
All right, let's start off with let me share my screen here and give me 1 second. This is usually where Sheets does this part of it, and because I've got my projections on the same page here, but here we go. All right, so St. Louis and Pittsburgh, you have like a 9 total in this game. This is a spot where I feel like if this was in like outside of Pittsburgh, you'd see a lot more interest. And I don't think you're going to get a lot of interest here. And I think Pittsburgh as a cheap stack, more of a cheap complementary stack, because I don't like to fully stack them. But I would just say, like, if you can play Brian Reynolds, depending on where Evans is hitting in the lineup, or whether it's you're going to have the cheap Nagowski at first. You're going to have the Stallings as a good catching option at 3,500. So there's a nice way to do like a little mini stack at Pittsburgh here. And in my first build on DK, I found myself doing that actually. I don't think Hap has anything anymore. Now you can still get away with that against Pittsburgh. I think some people even might play Hap. He shows up well from a point per dollar standpoint. I don't know if you need that savings. I'm not playing these pitchers. I have some interest in Pittsburgh. And then St. Louis is just a little bit out of my price range in a bad hitter's park with Goldschmidt and Arenado. I do think Edman and Carlson are kind of interesting, but it's a big slate, so I don't know how much I want to focus. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, Pittsburgh's great now to be a decent value stack because they got some cheaper guys, but they've came up in price a little bit. I like Cardinals side of it a little bit more, maybe. They have a couple cheap guys on the Cardinals, like O'Neill's still 3.5, Carlson 3.1. You know, Edman, you can get kind of a decent stack in there with some 3K guys. I know a couple of them are over 5. It's great now to be a top 3 stack so far as it is time now. So
yeah. Oh, interesting. Top 3 you have it. Okay. I can get behind it because I'm looking for an excuse to play against Pittsburgh with how bad their bullpen's been. And Braulta's just coming back, so it's not going to be a bullpen game entirely. Brault will go as long as depends on how well he's pitching. But I don't expect him to go out there and throw like, let's see how many pitches he threw in his last game. He threw 7? That's actually more than I would have thought. He'll probably throw 80 pitches if he's going well. If he's not going well, I think you could see him out of there pretty quick. Well, they've tended to leave their starters in to get roughed up lately, so I don't know. But I definitely can get behind the St. Louis. It's just that a couple of the bats that I would really want would be Goldie and Arenado, and they're a little pricey. But I agree with you about the Edman, O'Neill, and Carlson take for sure. All right, let's move over to LA and Philly. My Dodgers and the Phillies here. This is maybe the first time I've ever seen, including at Coors, I've never seen Aaron Nola pitch in a game where there's a 5-run total against him. This Dodger lineup is mean now. It's really, really strong. Literally down at the bottom, you have the freaking MVP hitting 8th, 7th or 8th in Bellinger. So of last year anyway. I don't know. I mean, this is a spot where I like, occasionally I'll take like a bat or two against Nola, like lefties especially tend to hit him really hard when they get to him. I'm having trouble though on this full slate being too excited about it. It's a huge stadium upgrade, obviously, for the Dodgers. I think Muncy, Bellinger, even at the bottom, Seager all stand out to me as being good plays, but I don't know if it's necessary on this slate. And I love Scherzer. He's the number 1 pitcher on the slate, in my opinion. How do you sort of see this game?
Yeah, I think Scherzer's the number 1 pitcher as well. Probably be in a lot of my lineups. Nola doesn't grade out too bad as a pitcher, but he's going against a tough lineup.
Yeah.
He's still coming in like a top 5 on a projection standpoint, but the Dodgers also grade out pretty well too as a hitting team. So it's interesting which way it's going to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Dodgers are priced up a little bit on DK for sure, though. A lot
Yeah.
more expensive, so it's gonna be hard to get to all of them.
Yeah, the one thing is I mean, look, it's a big slate, so but if this was a small slate, I would say like I'd be into stacking the Dodgers here because I think that there's a good chance that they could, put up a number against Nola, but it's going to be hard to be the top scoring like team on the slate just because Nola is a good pitcher. Like he's a really, really good real life pitcher. And it feels weird to pick on probably the second best pitcher on the slate. But at the same time, it is a great park upgrade and you do have some lefties that can get to him. So just thought I'd throw that out there. Yeah, I don't think that I don't think there's a way that I'm going to end up playing Nola, even though I could definitely see the argument at low ownership. I think you can do it with the value out there, but it just feels wrong to try and pick on a patient team that matches up. I mean, like if there was one team that matched up well with Nola because the Dodgers lefties, I think it would be the Dodgers. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to get to him personally, but he's on my list. There's just a bunch of guys on my list because I don't really love any SP2s, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's a tough day for pitching, but yeah, the Dodgers grade out as the worst team point per dollar today.
Right, of course. Yeah, that's how it's
out of all the teams in.
Yeah, but that's also they're also the most expensive if you take. They don't have like look at their lineup. I mean, they don't have a cheap guy in this lineup. You know what I mean? There's nobody. What's the cheapest guy we're going to get in the lineup? 4,400. That's pretty hard. They'd have to be. There's no other team that has anything even close to that. All right, let's talk about Detroit and Baltimore. Mize and Aiken. Look, this is a high run total game. There's looks like pretty good hitting weather. Tiny bit of weather concerns. I'm just going to say, like, there's definitely a path where Casey Mize ends up having a really, really nice night against a Baltimore team that he just pitched really well against the last time out. The thing that worried me was he only had 2 strikeouts in that game, and that's just his strikeouts have sort of just disappeared. And this is a guy who has K upside, at least from what we know of him and from what we think he's going to be. And it's just been like, it's just fallen off the cliff for his strikeouts. And, but you get Baltimore, who does struggle against righties. So I don't think I'm going to actually end up getting to a bunch of Mize, but just because of the way the slate is, I do have a tiny bit of interest. And I have a little bit Baltimore on a point per dollar basis. It's going to stand out again in some ways. You're going to have DJ Stewart probably batting 5th or 6th at 2,400. You can play Cedric Mullins is going to grade out as being one of the best plays on the slate. Mize is a guy who keeps the ball on the ground, so I'm less interested in the Baltimore stack. I am open to a Detroit stack, but I don't love like any one individual. Goodrum should come off the IL today, so he's like, I like him. I like Grossman, okay, but the price is up a little bit. You've got the expensive and only first base eligible Scope, and I mean it's expensive for Scope, but I do like him a little bit. I don't know. I'm not as into this game as maybe the field I think will be, because it does have a 10 total. It's in Baltimore. Bad bullpens on both sides once you get past the starters. Where do you stand on this one?
Ooh, this is a tough one. Yeah, they do grade out pretty good on the stack projections that I go off of. They're in like top 6, top 7, depending on DraftKings or FanDuel for Detroit. Yeah, a couple of pricier guys, but yeah, they're definitely, if you're like MME in, definitely get a Detroit stack in there. If you go with Baltimore side, like they're rated out really good point per dollar. A lot of those guys are cheaper, like what Bobby was saying. Even like Hayes and Stewart right there in mid 2Ks.
Santander, yeah.
Mullins and Mancini are the higher guys, but they're still only 4.8, 4.7. So you can really get a decent 3-man Baltimore stack or a 5-man if you want to go that direction. Yeah, Casey Mize isn't great out on Detroit lately. He's fallen down the list quite a bit. So
yeah, he's definitely, but I still believe there's a little bit of upside for him here. I'm gonna keep him. I'm not taking him off my list just yet. And look, if we needed to pay up for something, maybe playing Keegan Aiken could make some sense, but I would never do it on this full slate. Like I just would say like on a very small slate, he would have been one of my guys like yesterday if we had the same matchup.
Yeah.
But yeah, certainly some pieces to like. And I do think if you're going to make a 5-man Baltimore stack, I would say you really do want to try. If you get to 5-man, I think you want to include Mullins in that 5-man, just because I think that his upside is immense from a stolen base and power standpoint. He's also leading off. You tend to want the leadoff guy in your stacks. You don't need to have him all the time, but I do generally like to take the best hitter if I'm going to be making a 5-man stack. All right, this game I have much more interested. So here's an interesting spot. Okay, so we need to get word on Carrasco. I would bet anything that Derek Hardy in the bat has Carrasco again slated for like 85 or 90 pitches like he did last time. He's thrown 58 and 62 pitches in his 2 starts. Point per dollar wise, he looks like, if you look at anything right now, he looks to be one of the top 2 pitchers on the slate, point per dollar. That is, I can't fathom how that's possible. I understand Washington's beaten up. I mean, he's coming back from a serious injury. There's no reason for them to overextend him. They've got a good bullpen behind them. I'm having trouble clicking that Carrasco button, but at the same time, we're missing SP2. So if I really do think that he's going to throw 80 plus pitches, I'm going to play some Carrasco. I'm just very skeptical that they're going to let him go more than 75. And even at 75, I don't think I want to do that on a 15-game slate. Where do you stand with the pitching on that side of it?
Yeah, he doesn't grade out that well today, I don't think, like he has been.
I've got him at number 2 point per dollar from 2 different major sites.
Really? Yeah, he's not even up there on the bat right now. So
good for Cardi because he nailed it. He nailed it this time. But yeah, I don't think I just don't think unless we hear coach speak that he's going to throw 85 pitches that we can touch it.
Yeah, he's much farther down today on the list. Like,
yeah,
pretty far down, point per dollar in top points.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's got him slated at 15 DraftKings points, I think.
Right.
Which, I don't know, that might be high, a little higher. I don't know.
Yeah. The Mets are one of my favorite teams of the day. This is for Shea. This is about as good a hitting weather as you get. It's about 80 degrees, but it's 80% humidity, and the winds are blowing out pretty strong to left field. I really, really like the Mets today. Washington's bullpen was already bad, and then since all the moves and everything, it's just gotten weaker, and they're not really playing for much. I think that this is a spot where I want to play the Mets, and I think that as of right now, they're one of and possibly my favorite stacks. You get the cheap Alonso at 4,200. You've got Baez, hopefully makes the lineup, even though he's expensive. I would be more than happy to use him as my shortstop. And then you've got the lefties, Conforto, Nimmo, Dom Smith. My issue with Nimmo is always the same, okay? So outside of full stacks, and I see a lot of people one off him. I see a lot of people play him in 2-man, 3-man stacks. I'm just going to point out, this guy has hit a total of like 10 home runs in his last like 700 at bats. That's not a great ratio. I don't mind including him in a full stack, like I said, but I think you'd rather play, at least if it's me, I'd rather play Conforto, Dom Smith ahead of him, just because the power upside is more prevalent, even though Nimmo's actually a good real life hitter. But I do love the Mets today. Where do you stand with the hitting in this one?
Yeah, definitely the Mets grade out really well. Pretty good on both sites. Better on DK. But yeah, very cheap. Like you said, 4.2 for Alonso. And then all the other guys are around 3K, and you know, McNeil at 4.1. These guys grade out really well. It's a great game. They might be a little bit, you think they're gonna be chalky? A little bit more for
I'm not worried about the ownership on this slate as much, but yes, I do think that with their prices, especially on DraftKings, like it's interesting how my brain is so in baseball, it's so taught to be contrarian that my first build on FanDuel today, I had a Mets stack, and on DraftKings, I avoided them just for the thinking of, yes, they're probably going to have some ownership. But at the same time, can they really be too crazy owned on this 15-game slate? I don't think so. I do think Alonso will be an extremely popular play. He might even be the most popular first baseman. I think you get Conforto down at the bottom. I think you'll see people with the same lineups, but like in the 111, you do have to kind of worry about that because there's a lot more players than there are in like the 555s and the 777s. But overall, I'm not worried about it entirely today about the ownership. But I do think they're going to be one of the semi more popular teams, I would say.
Totally agree with everything there you had.
Nice. All right, let's talk about Tampa and Boston. This is a tough one. I like both pitchers in real life. That's kind of swaying me. Tampa has, you can argue between Tampa and San Diego. Since the All-Star break, Tampa's bullpen has been one of the best bullpens we've ever seen. They've been unbelievably good. Obviously, it's in Boston. Obviously, good hitting conditions in Boston as always this time of year. Not quite as great as it has been. It's not 90 degrees like we had a couple games. Got a high run total here. I don't know, man. I can see the argument for both sides of playing Rodriguez and for stacking Tampa, and I could see the argument for stacking at least. Well, I would go more for a mini stack with Boston. what are your thoughts on this one? Because I'm sort of struggling with this game, to be honest with you.
Yeah, this game's kind of right there in the middle. Boston grades out pretty good as a projection for a stack. Rodriguez is decently projected in DraftKings, and let's check FanDuel real quick how he looks. Yeah, he's like top, in the top 10, I would say, for the pitchers today. So yeah, that's a tough one. I don't see as much Tampa side of things today. I would stick to the Boston side. I mean, Tampa's right there too. They don't grade out as good. They're kind of pricey. Boston's a little less pricey, in my opinion. So
Right. No, I agree. I think that Boston is a side I would side with as well, with the exception of Nelson Cruz against any lefty at 4,800 is always going to pique my interest. And I think Nelson Cruz is a terrific one-off play, regardless of how anyone sees the game. Just going to take a quick look while we're doing this, because I didn't get to it before the show, but I want to just take a quick look because Rodriguez has a pretty good experience. I mean, these guys play each other so many times every year that we should at least get some idea of how he's pitched against the particular lineup that he's facing. It's not quite as big as I would have thought. 24 strikeouts and 70 at bats. They have had a little bit of power, nobody especially crazy. Brandon Lowe 3 for 9 with 2 home runs. But yeah, I think I'm probably going to end up more off this game, and it makes me a little bit nervous because we've seen these teams go nuts, especially Boston, plenty of times. So, but I don't think Patino's a terrible pitcher. And again, as I said before, Tampa has a good bullpen, and this is an important game for these teams. So I expect them to put their best foot forward. It's not like they're Pittsburgh just, okay, we're down 7-0. Let's just leave the scrub pitcher in, whatever. You know what I mean? These guys are going to get the best effort from these two teams competing for a division title. So. Yeah. Is there any specific hitters on Boston that stood out? Because that's what I was struggling with. Is like, I understand that they're like more, you have JD, Renfro. I don't like playing Duran because he has zero power. I say this is funny because I said that right before his first game too, and he is literally hit like 4 home runs, was his high in the minor leagues over 100 games, and he hits a home run his first at bat. I don't think he's hit one since then. Maybe he's hit one.
I think he's hit one more, but yeah.
Yeah, one more. So I'm just not as high on the Boston thing today personally, but I definitely does scare me every time I say that. Yeah,
there's a couple of those guys that are cheaper, like Renfro, Duran.
Yeah.
That make the stack a little bit better, but yeah, one thing about Cruz you're talking about, he's only 4.8 on DK now. So
that's what I was saying, yeah.
So yeah, he's a little bit cheaper. Like he's been in the 5s for a 5K range a lot.
Man, he was like last year, he ended up at 6K most of the time. And this guy, I mean, of all people against lefties for his career, he's just absolutely torches them. And Erod, we know, can give up, even though Erod's got good stuff, he can give up certainly give up some power.
Yeah. So that's the direction you guys can go, I think too. So.
Yeah, I have him on my one-off. I'll probably have him as one of my plays of the day.
But they both grade out for bats right in the middle on a stack.
Yeah.
About the same. Boston a little bit over the Rays.
Yep. Likewise, I agree. Oakland, Cleveland. This is another one of those spots where it looks to be pretty good hitting conditions. So you're going to hear me say that a lot this time of year, but those things do matter when you're trying to stack teams up. I just personally, I'm very surprised by Boston's run projection, by Oakland's run total projection here. I like Oakland as a sneaky stack. It's 86 degrees with 10-mile-an-hour winds blowing out, to give you an idea. The thing is, I will keep saying this about McKenzie. When he's good, he is really good. I know the numbers don't bear it out, like look amazing in his last start against Toronto. First of all, it's Toronto at Toronto is always going to be a tough matchup. But I thought he pitched terrific in that game. Like he was really, really working it. And he, gave up the one big home run that cost him, basically what would have been an unbelievable outing. And you could you want to get an idea of what kind of pitcher he is, just take a look at his game log. You know what I mean? You see the negatives, and then you see the 20, 18, the 32 in there. He's got really, really good stuff. He also leads the MLB in walk rate for pitchers. So I think it's important to, I don't know. I think that I'm tempted to stack Oakland. I'm very tempted to play McKenzie if I don't think other people are going to go there, and I don't think they will. So I'm very open to McKenzie. And again, for him though, I want a pitcher's umpire. This is where the hitting pitcher's umpire really matters. When you got a guy who leads the league in walk rate, if he can cut down on the walks, which he had no walks in his last game, and he's been cutting them down in general. Look at earlier in the season, 3, 5, 3, 2, 4. These are massive walk rates, and these are only in, that's just 4 walks, but that was 2/3 of an inning. I want to stack against guys who walk guys a lot, but at the same time, I think McKenzie has the stuff to get through an Oakland lineup that can be strikeout prone. So I have interest in McKenzie, and I have interest in the Oakland side. I have some interest in Minaya as well. The price is probably going to keep people off of him. I'll just point out this guy has a freaking ceiling. He shows it to us plenty of the times. Last time he was just sort of mediocre against Cleveland, but he did have 7 Ks and 5 1/3. I think he's interesting. I don't think I'm going to end up doing it, but I'm sort of like open to both these pitchers, and then I'm definitely open to an Oakland stack. How about you?
Yeah, I think Sean Manaea has been, I've been playing him a lot this year. He's had some good games for me. I definitely like him. He is 10K, a little priced up the norm, but he does project pretty decent. I'm probably not going to get to McKenzie as much. He's definitely, if you're MME and though, not a bad idea to get him in if you're playing the small $11, 150 lineup MME, you can throw him in some stuff. I do like Oakland. I mean, I think Olsen, we talked about Alonso earlier. Olsen grades out as the best first baseman right now.
Yep.
I think just over Alonso. So that definitely got some hitters on this Oakland side if you want to target that for some bats.
Yep.
The only thing is this would probably be the worst weather game. Not because the hitting weather is great, but they're the only weather. I think they're only they got like a storm that could pop up as of right now, like on pace to hit them. So it's marked a little bit on the orange category as from our weather guy. So it'd be that's the worst, the worst category of the slate, but it's probably going to be fine. So just check back around lock, make sure if you're stacking Oakland to watch that weather. Should be good though. 10-mile-an-hour out, like Bobby said, should be good hitting weather as long as that storm misses. So.
If this game was in Oakland, the run total would be about a 1.5 lower. That's how big of a deal that this is making. Minaya would look like one of the best plays on the slate. I really think it makes that much of a difference. In fact, that last game against Cleveland, I want to say that he was the chalk of the slate against that Cleveland lineup. So
probably, I remember that 15-point game. I probably had him.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? If you're going to get the 37s, 39s, you got to be okay with the occasion.
I did get the 39 too. I think I had him that day, but.
but Oakland, if you're going to do it, the stack, I like Olsen, Marte. Those are the expensive ones that I like. And you can mix in like a Chapman if you want to. I don't love playing Jed Lowry unless I'm full stacking, but he would be a cheaper option. Oakland is kind of expensive too. So just keep that stuff in mind. So, all right. Well, they do have Yan Gomes too, who's going to,
yeah, they got a couple cheaper guys projected to play. Josh Harrison 3.1, Yan Gomes 2.8. Yeah. Mark Cannon is only 3.9. So I mean, there's some guys in there, that are cheap. You do a 3-man with.
I didn't realize for some reason I had it on my sheet. I was thinking 4.9 for Cannon. Yeah, 39 is totally reasonable.
Yeah, there's only Olsen and Marte's in the 5.2, 5.3 range, so it's not actually that bad of a stack.
Yeah, that's true. And actually, I the thing is, I don't love the other bats as much. I like Canna, Marte, and Olsen. And if I did a stack of this, I probably would want to include those guys. Only fear for Olsen as a one-off, guys. For those of you considering it, great power spot because he does give up power, McKenzie, but he also will miss outside the zone. So, and Olsen is more than happy to take his walks. The guy walks a ton. So just keep that in mind if you're thinking about one-offs. I always remind people about that with Muncy and Olsen. There's power upside there, but there's a lot of walks in those bats. So if you're trying to just get him as a one-off, I probably like it a little bit less against that really high walk pitcher. All right, Smiley and Gray in Atlanta. I am not playing, since he hits so much better at home, it's kind of hilarious. Like if you look at Castellanos, especially his numbers on the road, this is not a coincidence. They hit in a great hitter's park. I'm sort of off of this game for pretty much everything. If Sonny Gray was a little bit cheaper, maybe I would take some stabs, but I just think I'm sort of off this spot here, and it doesn't seem like it's all that bad of a spot. It's just not where I'm going today. How about you?
The Reds project decent for stack still. They're a little more expensive these days, but they still grade out really well. But there's some expensive guys on there for DK, but they grade out well. Smiley hasn't pitched that well. He grades out as not as good.
Yep.
I might not get there though, because there's just a lot of options on the slate. But I mean, they've been hitting the ball really well. The Reds had some big games recently, but I don't know. I don't really like, and I definitely don't like Atlanta. I've been playing them a lot lately, but today's not a day for them. So
Yeah, I think I'm just I get the idea of trying to get after Smiley, but I personally just probably am going to be off of it with the prices for the guys I want, because I was all into the lefty thing with Votto yesterday and with Winker, which I think was fine. And lefties can actually hit Smiley, but like to pay 5,900 for a lefty matchup for Winker, who basically is an average hitter against left-handed pitching, and very poor for power, and is absolutely unbelievable against righties. I don't know if I could have too much interest. If he hits a home run, my prediction is it's going to be after the 5th or 6th inning probably, and it's only 1 or 2 at bats to hope for. And same thing with Votto, who's also crazy priced at 61 for good reason. Votto's better against lefties in general than Winker historically, but this year they both have picked on righties like crazy. And if you're going to play bats, Castellanos, Suarez, Farmer, those would be the guys I'd look to. But even they're a little bit more expensive than they probably, I don't want to say should be, but than they would normally would be, I guess. All right, Milwaukee, Chicago, which we don't even know who's going to pitch in this game or play. It's going to be a 7-inning game. I don't trust that for sure. These are going to be the pitchers. I'm going to say let's probably just skip past this game because it's a doubleheader. It'll be 7 innings. We're not going to play any hitters in this game, obviously, even in great hitting conditions in Chicago.
yeah, agree. I'm not going to have anything probably this.
This is one of the higher totals for a 7-inning game I've seen. It's 8.5, which is pretty high for a 7-inning prediction. I just don't think you can do anything with it. If I had any interest, honestly, no, I can't do anything. We'll see who ends up actually pitching, but I can't see myself getting too heavily invested here in any way. All right, let's talk about Colorado, Houston, Gray and Odorizzi. I have interest in Odorizzi here. He's been awful after pitching really well to start the season. You could see, I mean, he hasn't had a game that we would even accept. He's had some cake matchups too, and he hasn't been good. I would consider, I mean, this is the best matchup technically. Like Colorado outside of Coors is the worst team in baseball, worst offense in baseball. We've seen ceilings from him before. It's been a while. He's really struggling, but I am willing to take a shot against Colorado. And at the same time, it's really funny with John Gray, because if this game was in Colorado and Houston was the mega chalk, I'd be saying, hey, look, we're not going to just assume Gray sucks. Like he's been good, and he's been good against good teams. He has to play in the NL West and face the Dodgers and Padres and Giants, for most of his games. And look at, he's solid. I'm not talking about playing him. I'm talking about reasons not to stack against him, because I do have a little bit of interest in Houston. Gray is going to the American League. He can give up power. And I like the Houston lineup as maybe an off the board play, but I don't know realistically how much I'm really going to get of it. How about you? Any interest in this game on either side, pitching or hitting?
Yeah, Orduzzi, he projects pretty decent, and he's only 7.7 on DK. Yeah, like you said, he started the year real well, and he's not really done well lately, but he's definitely someone that can get you cheaper SP2, because we're struggling to kind of find an SP2 today. I think he might be a guy that fits the bill.
Yep.
It lets you pay up at bats a little bit. So you could pair him with Scherzer, maybe that help you get a little bit more at the bats today. So I don't mind going there. But as far as bats, I haven't really want to target anybody in these games. I don't have anything, nothing popping too much for me. So Rockies, nothing. So
I'm going to pull up my recent trend thing that I look at for bullpens and just see where the Rockies, how bad they are, because I think that overall this season, let me see where I have them here. They're the second worst, but it's kind of hard because they play in Colorado. Yeah, it's gotten even worse recently. So that's another one of my reasons for liking a little bit of Houston. I'm not the guy who just stacks against the starting pitcher. I think that's like a very narrow way of looking at these things. And I would like to try and pick on the bullpens as well. So I personally, where's my shared screen here? For some reason, I can't find my DraftKings sheet. You're still seeing my DraftKings up there, right?
I see you.
You don't see my draft. Oh, did I stop my share? What did I do here? Sorry about that. Let me get my DraftKings sheet back up so I can share it, and we'll be back in business. Sorry about that, guys. So it was working though before, right? Did you happen to notice?
Yeah. You were on DraftKings.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know how I must have misclicked the button. Technical error.
Yep, there you go.
What's it showing though?
DraftKings and then both of our pictures on the right.
Perfect. There we go. Okay. Sorry, I'm juggling screens around. All right. So next game is a game I think people are going to have interest in. Before we all just say, hey, let's stack the Yankees against the lefty again. Sure. Great hitting weather, by the way. I'm just going to point out that lately we've seen Daniel Lynch look pretty good. Not saying that you can't play against him. I'm not saying anything, but the White Sox and Toronto are two really tough matchups. And even though I'm not talking about playing him, I'm talking about why not to play the Yankees, but I'm still going to play the Yankees. It's just going to be another similar situation as yesterday for me. I'm probably looking at a couple of bats with the obvious ones, Stanton, Judge. I think you can mix in, Voit obviously at 3,700 is still way too cheap. And you can mix in a LeMahieu to make a 4-man or Higgy as your catcher at 3,300. But I'm a little nervous at the idea of stacking against a guy who I've seen pitch pretty well. At the same token, I kind of like the KC side of this. Like I think you've got Merrifield way too cheap. I know he struggled overall, but one thing I love about this guy is even when he struggles, like he'll go out there and steal bases for you. You know what I mean? You look at him and he just keeps stealing bases all the time, you know? Even against lefties, he'll run. Like he loves to run. And I love that you get that sort of stolen base upside combined with the power. I think Hunter Dozier at 3K is going to be interesting, probably batting in the middle, 4th or 5th, I would guess. Obviously Salvador Perez, if you want to spend all the way up at catcher, and then Santana, who historically has been very good against lefties, but this year hasn't been quite the same. We'll see where Benintendi hits, but another guy who even as a lefty, I wouldn't mind it that much. So I don't really mind. I sort of like this game overall. It's a great hitting environment. You've got a high total. You've got some questionable pitchers. I'm interested. I just don't think it's going to be. I have the Yankees as a 3-4 man stack right now, not so much a 5-man. Where do you stand with this one?
Yeah, I've been kind of, off the Yanks. They project right in the middle of the pack today for me. But like you said, the KC side, Merrifield yesterday, I think he went 0-for-5 batting. Got on he got a walk, and then he stole a base and got a run.
Yep.
So he scored 9 points and still went 0-for-5.
On the ultimate floor game, he somehow still managed to get the other 9 points.
Yeah. That's 3.5. So
yeah, he's also been historically good against lefties too. So going for him.
KC's got a lot of cheap guys. Only Perez is 5.3. The rest of the guys are all under 4K. You definitely can get an easy stack on the KC side. And a lot of them can hit homers too. A lot of homer upside there too. So seen a lot. Perez is always a good catcher play. Usually grades out the top catchers on the slate. So he's right up there today. So KC could be a good play.
Yeah, I'm into that. How about, and I understand being off the Yankees. I do think that they'll have ownership, but I don't think it's going to be like out of control. I mean, especially on a 15-game slate like we've seen at certain times with them. This is an interesting one. Okay, so everyone is going to talk about the White Sox, especially after yesterday. I think that they will end up being, they would have ended up being the chalk if they weren't so expensive. They're so expensive that it's kind of hard for them to be the ultimate chalk. And the weird thing is, as I said on our show yesterday, like part of the problem with them is how do you stack them? Obviously, Eloy is going nuts. If you're playing cash games today, you should have Eloy Jimenez in your cash game lineup. So the guy is an absolute monster of a hitter. He's actually a 5K probably plus hitter when he's back. Obviously we were getting him at 2K for a couple days because he was coming back from the injury. But then you got, Hernandez on the infield. You've got who's the cheaper option, Abreu. Moncada is actually affordable and really affordable on FanDuel. Tim Anderson is obviously expensive. And then it depends on who they end up playing in the outfield, whether they go with Sheets, they'll probably go back to Robert because he's their natural starter. He's just been out. I'm just going to go on and say that I think Jax is going to be a decent pitcher at some point, and I still have interest in the White Sox. It's a little limited for me because of that. And then I like Donaldson as a one-off from Minnesota a ton, but I don't have an interest in stacking them. How about you?
Yeah, from a projection, we got White Sox coming in probably number one on both FanDuel and
Yep.
DraftKings. So
Especially FanDuel.
they're probably going to be a little bit chalky for a 15 game, but I mean, don't worry about that on 15 on this big
Sure.
slate. But yeah, they're expensive. They're hard to get in a stack. You know, FanDuel's a little bit cheaper on a couple of guys, but I might like them over there a little bit better. But DraftKings, yeah, I mean, they had a good night last night, so a lot of people probably go towards them tonight, but they do project really well. I know Bobby likes that Jax pitcher, so you know, I don't know if I'm gonna get there. There's some other guys and games I really like today, but they're definitely a good play. If I'm MME in, I definitely want some White Sox in there though.
Yep. I agree with all of what you said. Any interest in the Minnesota side for you?
Ooh, I didn't even yeah, they grade out, you know, mid level there. They grade out right next to the near the Yankees on a projection standpoint. Probably because they got decent bats. Only on FanDuel wise. They're better on FanDuel, Minnesota. Not great out that well on DraftKings.
Yeah, and I said Donaldson. I also do like Sano, by the way, as a one-off play. I generally want him against righties. He tends to have more power there, but you put a low strikeout guy against Sano, and he strikes out 40+% of the time. When you take that away, the guy's an absolute monster, and he becomes the best hitter in baseball, basically. And Keuchel, it's not that he can't strike him out at all, but and he does induce ground balls, but Sano can get the ball in the air. He has no problem with that. He's also homered in back-to-back games, and he's a very streaky hitter. So I kind of have interest in those two, but I don't think I'm going to stack them.
Yeah, he's 3.4K on DK. So, but there's a lot of good first base options we already talked about too, though.
Yeah. Okay, not bad. Yeah, that's true. I just meant like as a he's the cheap version of a guy like he and Voit would be the lower end with Olsen and I guess I mean even Alonso's cheapish, but Olsen and Alonso would be the other two I'd play.
Yeah.
So here we got an interesting one like Gallen and Wood. I think that on this slate, even like this is really gross. You have I think San Francisco has the lowest run total on the slate. Now we just saw this matchup, and Alex Wood was awful. Alex Wood at 9,800 on a full slate, where I'm already probably playing Scherzer in any lineup I want to play him in. It feels wrong. There's plenty of value to get out there that you don't need to like worry about it, but is the strikeout upside enough? Are we better off just playing Manaea even in a more volatile matchup because there's more upside there? It's a tough one for me because I would tend to be the guy who'd want to play the Manaea or Erod even in tougher matchups, but it is San Francisco. It's the lowest total on the slate, so I have some interest. And then Zach Gallen, who, you know, hasn't really been himself this year, has started to pitch a lot better his last few times out. He had the one struggling game at Chicago in that windy day. I don't like picking on San Francisco terribly, but I do think at 7,100, because of the guys we're thinking about, he's on the list for me. Just, I don't feel great about this at all. And I'm probably going to end up with a little bit of each of these guys, and I just don't feel great about it. Where do you stand?
Yeah, Wood grades out to be a top 3 pitcher on the projection wise, but like you said, I like Manaea or Rodriguez a lot better. I think, you know, that's probably where I'll end up. I probably won't get to Wood, but he's definitely playable. He's grading out to be pretty good. So, yeah, I'd go with that. I mean, you can play him. He's definitely in play. So.
Yeah, I mean, even though he struggled last time out, he did have 8 strikeouts the previous time he faced Arizona. Like, there's some strikeouts in that lineup, more than there was earlier against lefties. I'm stuck on that one. I'm gonna have to figure that one out later today. This might be the lowest total I've seen all year, to where I actually thought it was a misprint for Toronto. To have just barely over a 4-run total for this Blue Jays team just doesn't feel like it should ever really happen. Also, it's like good hitting weather for LA. Not in general compared to the rest of the slate, but for the Angel, in terms of games in Anaheim, it's going to be 80 degrees. Like, I actually think Suarez is decent. I think I think Stripling is probably a fairly similar play to Wood. I'm just probably not going to be on it. And I'm not going to play Suarez, but I definitely have some interest in a low-owned Toronto stack. These guys are now actually affordable. which is nice. Like much cheaper than they have been. I really think that if no one's really going to look Toronto's way today, and I think that's going to be the case, I'm all on board with taking some Toronto bats here, and it's the obvious guys for me. So I that's where I stand here. How about you?
Yeah, Toronto comes in and not grading out well at all. I
Yep.
actually don't have I don't have the pitchers updated on here on my sheets here though, so I don't have the
They're
LA
Alex
pitcher in
Cobb.
there. That might be a factor why they're not grading out that well. But for bats wise, they're not too bad. All the main guys I like. The main hitters. Vlad. Springer's been hot. He's gonna hit homers 4.6 on DK. Teoscar is only like 3.9 now. So a couple of these guys are pretty priced. Grichuk at 3.4 if he's in there. So the guys are pretty cheap guys. You can get a good stack there, I think, in Toronto.
Yeah, it's the cheapest they've been. It's the lowest run total, and I don't really entirely understand it. I understand in general their team, like they have a million righties they can throw at you. Suarez, a lefty. I think he's decent. Like I've said this before about him, but this is not a team you get away with being decent against very often. And look, it's Vlad going to play back where his dad played too. Not that that's going to make any difference for hitters. I always think it makes a difference for pitchers. Like that's the only narrative in baseball would be pitching somewhat. But for hitters, it's just it's just weird to see Toronto at these prices not going to be owned. And I'm just shocked at the run total. If I had to make an immediate bet, just thinking about this game, I would bet the over right away. And I think that we have to say like Justin Upton at 2,300 is just a pricing mishap. I know he's struggled a little bit. He's 2,300. We know he has power. He's going to hit 25 home runs this year, probably end up somewhere around there. Even Joe Adele, assuming that he's in the lineup, is actually, he's a really talented kid. Then you've got obviously Ohtani. I'm not going to stack against Stripling here, but I think this game spells over, and I think Justin Upton stands out as being a really good value play. That's where I'm at for that. Let's move. Oops, let me get rid of that first before we move over to the final two. It's weird to have a day where you got a lot of things, but not like a lot of obvious stacks and not a lot of obvious pitchers that you want to play either, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of options. There's a lot of different things to do today. It's crazy.
A lot, but not a lot of, certainly pitching wise, there's certainly not a lot of like just surefire options. I can't find a guy for SP2 that I think makes like great sense yet.
Very
Speaking of which, another guy who I can't believe I would do this against San Diego, but he did just dominate this team and put up 32 against them last time. He's 6,900. I like Braxton Garrett. I think another one of these talented kids. I'm very worried about everything from at some point the Marlins will limit their pitchers probably. They're not doing it yet, but I'm just waiting for that to start happening any day. I think this is a spot where I have a little bit of interest in Garrett. And then on FanDuel, I have interest in the cheap Myers and Pham plays. Machado, I'm not going to get to today against Garrett. I'm not going to make a full stack of San Diego, but I certainly do like I do like the Pham and Myers, especially stand out price wise on FanDuel. But what do you think about Garrett? And then what do you think about the Padres side of this? I don't think that a bullpen game against the Padres is like lights out. So the only guy who I'll play from Miami and hit another one for me last night, I will continue to play Lewis Brinson as long as they keep him at minimum cost. People forget this guy was like a top prospect like 4 years ago, maybe it was 5 years ago now. And he's actually talented. And if you just look what he's been doing lately, he's been really, really solid, even in games where he's not hitting home runs. He's got talent. So I'm open to him at 2K as well.
Yeah. You see that 0 on the board on his stats that one day. That's when I played him. That's when I played him.
You got the wrong day.
I got him on the wrong day, man.
Damn. He was 2K on I think it was an 11 game slate at Coors batting cleanup. And I want to say he was 1% or 2% owned. He had a home run that day. Oh no, he didn't have a home run, but he had a nice day. But he had 17 fantasy points or something. But I was like, whoa, like 2K at Coors batting cleanup. I've never seen somebody like 1% owned in that spot before.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, he's been pretty good. I do like the Padres a little bit, like you said, more on FanDuel. A little bit better. They're a couple guys. They're not bad price on DK, but they're not grading out as well. They grade out decent on FanDuel more if you want to get to them over there.
Yeah, that's what I would probably end up doing. Even you got Marisnik, who you don't know where they're going to end up batting him in the lineup. They sort of shuffle it around with him. So there's some really cheap options on you could use the Padres 2 or 3 man on FanDuel. But are you feeling me a little bit on this Garrett thing? Like, is it weird if no one plays him, that's going to be weird, right? And I think no one's going to play him because it's San Diego. But like I just said, he just pitched 7 innings, had 10 Ks against the same team 2 weeks ago. Not even 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean he's got some talent. He's pretty cheap if you want to give him some. If you're MMEing and got a huge, large entry, big GPP stuff, high entries, yeah, take some shots on that cheap guy. I mean, he's a good shot if he gets you that 32 again.
Oof.
You're sitting at the top, man. If you got the right bats with him.
Yeah, there's upside, and we don't like the other options as much. I think I'm talking myself into a little bit more Garrett than I was originally planning on playing. And I also just am not as afraid of San Diego in general without Tatis. Now, it could completely go the opposite direction. I could see the argument for San Diego, but I don't love the SP2s here. And so why wouldn't I take the upside guy in Garrett, who has, I would say that Garrett probably has, like Wood's a better pitcher and gets to 20 more often. But I think Garrett gets to 30 almost as often as Wood does. Like that's how crazy it is to me. You know what I mean? And that's how I'm trying to think. I'm just thinking if you're going to take a shot, anyway, I think he's interesting. Here is probably the most common, especially because the projections are going to love him. Logan Gilbert hasn't been as dominant the last few times out as he was earlier in his starts. They'll let him pitch. He's a superstar prospect. Did just face this Texas team and wasn't like amazing. He's the most natural guy I probably feel best about as my SP2, which is really priced as an SP1. So I'll be paying up for both spots. What are your thoughts on Gilbert in this game in general?
Yeah, Gilbert grades out as the number 2 guy on the projections, but I do like him, but he is priced up and he hasn't really been as good as he was, like you said. But Texas is not a great team either. So he could do work. So
great pitchers park as well in Seattle. I'm going to have myself some Logan Gilbert today for sure. And I think that he's going to be pretty common. So let's sum it up real quick. Now that we've sort of gone through every game and sort of talked about our thoughts, who are your top pitchers that you're considering right now?
So if we're going with pitchers, my top pitchers are number 1's going to be Scherzer. He's probably best pitcher on the slate. I'll probably have some shares of. I do like Logan Gilbert. I do like Sean Manaea. I think they just announced Peralta to pitch against the Cubs for that 7-inning game.
We'll see if that happens. And then if that happens, we'll go for that. I have seen those juggle back and forth with these doubleheaders so often that I want to wait to know for sure before I do anything. But I would be all over Peralta in that game, even with
that would be an interesting one as well if he's in there, guys. I don't mind taking a shot at Jake Odorizzi at 7.7. He projects well. So you can get him on your list. So that's kind of where I'm at for pitching. And now Rodriguez for Boston.
Yeah.
I like him too.
I like that. I've got Scherzer and Gilbert at the top right now, but I'm open to not playing Gilbert. I don't think I'm just throwing it out there. I like the Manaea and Erod pivots off of them. I really like this Barrett idea that sort of just came, and I like Odorizzi. And then I'm definitely going to have some McKenzie and some lineups today if he gets an even adequate pitcher's ump, which I just have to double check later on today. So other guys who, Alex Wood deserves to be on the list, but I don't know that I'm going to want to end up doing them. We're going to have to see about Peralta, but mainly it's going to be Scherzer, Odorizzi, Gilbert, Barrett, Manaea in some order for me. Now, how about stacks? Who are you looking at? Who are some of your favorite stacks?
I talked a little bit about the Mets. I do like the Mets stack. Maybe my other ones, some of the Cardinals guys we talked about that are cheap. I'm probably going to be, and I did like Oakland. We talked about, I know you liked McKenzie, a couple of their guys. Olson's probably a good home run pick of the day. I think I like him at first base there. We talked about some Royals, KC, a little bit cheaper, good plays. I do like the Pirates as a value. You get some guys there if you're looking. You know, Jay Happ, he's kind of been rough. I think go with the Pirates.
Yeah,
they've been hitting pretty good. They're a little bit more priced up, but
the Happ thing, like I could actually see Happ being in play at 5,900 here, and I think by the end of the day, people will talk themselves into some Jay Happ.
I think so too. He's popping up more on the projections now. He's not that far from Rodriguez or Odorizzi and Sean Vinet. He's catching up to some of those guys. And
he's 5,900. I mean, so I kind of agree. So I'm gonna have to fine tune my list. As of right now, I have the Mets as a team that I'm prioritizing. I like both sides of the New York KC game, as I mentioned. Both sides of the Pittsburgh St. Louis game that I mentioned. The cheaper guys are the ones who I'll be playing in mini stacks, not full stacks. I agree about Oakland, even though I like McKenzie. I think anybody who has a walk rate like that is always primed to, you know, the one problem is Cleveland's got a good bullpen behind him, but it's great hitting conditions, and I could definitely see getting to Oakland. Detroit. So these are partly due to weather, and I don't like that term game stack, and people all get weird about, oh, there's no such thing in baseball. But if there's weather, there's such thing. If there's umpire, there's such thing. So Detroit, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, St. Louis, New York, KC are my combo guys who I'll fit into my Mets stack, my White Sox stack, and my Toronto Blue Jays stack. Those are the ones I'm mainly looking at for full stacks, along with considering Oakland. I don't even know if I'll get there, but the main ones for me for 5 men would be Mets, Toronto, and the White Sox. One-offs, I wanted to mention some of the guys who I have. Nelson Cruz, Pete Alonso, Josh Donaldson, Judge, Stanton, Voit, Merrifield, Eloy, Jimenez, obviously, as a stack or not. Brian Reynolds will be the one who's overlooked as always, just an awesome hitter who's probably too cheap and also has some stolen base upside in general, and maybe not against Happ specifically, but in general in that game, he can get you there multiple ways. Upton, Nagowski, Hunter Dozier, Jan Gomes, Castro, Brinson. Those are the cheap guys who I'm looking at today. Any specific one-offs or cheapos who stood out to you?
Nick Castellanos is still pretty cheap at 4.4K. He could be a good runoff for that.
Yep, I like that.
Reds project kind of well too.
Yeah,
expensive, but you can get a couple of them.
Yeah,
you know, one off. You know, good hitter.
It is good, and the truth is, what I said about the home thing, that could always change. I mean, it's baseball, but it's no coincidence to me. For some reason, even when Castellanos, you know, was in Detroit, like he's always been a better hitter at home. But this is like crazy. I mean, this year he's like hitting like 390 at home with all but 3, I think, of his home runs are at home. And on the road, he's basically a below average hitter in the majors. But you can throw that out in baseball. It's one day that we're playing for. We're not playing to try and play him over the next week on a road trip or something. One side bet I did want to mention is just, as of right now, I just saw it. I looked it up and it had Carrasco as a 6.5K prop. Now, if that's actually real and we can get that bet, I'm going to try once we get off the show and make that bet right away. Because Carrasco, there's no way a pitcher who's pitching 60, hasn't pitched more than 62 pitches and is coming off a serious injury. If we really don't think he's going to throw 80 plus pitch, even if he throws 80 to 85, 6.5 is a huge K prop. So I would bet the under on that one. And that seems like a really easy bet unless we hear he's going to be unleashed, which I just don't see them doing yet, but that's just my first take.
I got 5.5 on this one thing for him, but
okay. So I've got.
It could have came down to put some sports books still might have, you know, the 6.5. So
yeah, it happened yesterday. A couple guys came way down. Actually, somebody came down like a full 1.5 full strikeouts. All right, man. Well, this is good. I really appreciate you being here with me. This is terrific. Hopefully, somebody can take something down tonight. Any final thoughts for the people before we get out of here?
Let's just get it tonight. I hope we take something down and get those screenshots out there. Let's get it, guys.
All right. For Rohde, for all of True DFS, I'm Bobby saying good luck out there and let's crush it. Later, y'all.